Think Mayor Rahm Emanuel has failed Chicago?
Well, Rahm Emanuel, first of all, is a con man. His whole job is to keep black folks divided.
No, he doesn't care about anybody but the people in his neighborhood and his family.
City's in financial calamity. The organization in the city of Chicago is just complete disarray. No matter which angle you want to audit or look at, Chicago is a complete mess.
So you say that he cares more about the illegal immigrants that are in the city than the African Americans?
I said exactly that. He cares more about non-citizens, African Americans. We're citizens, and our ancestors built this country.
He got some good things, but I think he don't step up and come to the people where the crime is. You know what I'm saying? The crime is on the south side and the west side.
We have to make sure that President Trump recognized that not everyone believes that Chicago is a Trump-free zone. If he's serious about helping the people in Chicago, especially on the west side of Chicago, I accept his help. We can't turn any help away. We have to make sure that people understand that criminals cannot have their way with our streets. We have to protect our youth, we have to protect our seniors, and people have to have safe places to walk. And so, you know, one murder is too many. And so if Chicago Police Department and all the other law enforcement can't do it, we should seek other help.
Wow. That is something. Protesters in Chicago demanding Mayor Rahm Emanuel step down immediately amid the city's ongoing crime epidemic. Even Democrats calling on President Trump to come into Chicago to take action. Here now is Gianna Caldwell, Fox News political analyst and Chicago native. This is extraordinary. It goes so much against the common wisdom that particularly minorities in Chicago, the last thing they want is President Trump. They want to rely on the mainstream Democratic politicians. Not so, you found out.
Yeah, it goes against the politically allowed wisdom, David. I found that many people there are just fed up with the violence. One lady told me, and she was a older African-American woman, she said she can't even have her grandkids come and visit her because she doesn't want them to return in the casket. So when you see the fear, when you see the fact that Rahm Emanuel has been his inaction on the violence in Chicago, that many people fear even waking up because they don't know if a bullet is going to come through their window or not, you know that there's time for a change. And I really want to applaud State Representative LaShawn Ford, who is a senior Democrat in the state legislature.
Well, that's the for thing.
Saying
they are breaking, liberals are breaking with the Democrat establishment for their own safety's sake and for the safety of their community.
Yeah. Absolutely. And LaShawn Ford, he's on the west side of Chicago, and he has one of the hardest hit areas in terms of the violence. I remember one lady at the protest told me that her nephew was burned alive beyond recognition and put in a garbage can from some gang violence. When you think about that, you should scream for help because Rahm Emanuel is obviously not hearing the many residents in Chicago, especially the most vulnerable.
No, and that is that President Trump has talked about ending the Dreamers program. To all the Dreamers that are here in this room and in the city of Chicago, you are welcomed in the city of Chicago. This is your home, and you have nothing to worry about. Chicago, our schools, our neighborhoods, our city, as it relates to what President Trump said, will be a Trump-free zone. You have nothing to worry about. And I want you to know this, and I want your families to know it, and rest assured, I want you to come to school, but more than just come to school, pursue your dreams. And as your classmate just talked about, we're the only city in the United States that if you get a B average in high school, community college is free, and it is open to dreamers. It is the only public scholarship in the United States, public funded scholarship, in which dreamers are able to access those resources. So to all those who are part of what are referred to as DACA or dreamers, you will always be dreamers in the eyes of the city of Chicago because you have big dreams and we want to be part of those dreams. So rest assured in that effort.
Too many people with criminal records on the street, and there is a shortage of values about what is right, what is wrong, what is acceptable, what is condoned, and what is condemned. And we as a city, in every corner, have an accountability and a responsibility. If you know who did this, be a neighbor. Speak up. neighbors come together. The city will be with you shoulder to shoulder. But this is not about alone how many police, where were they. The superintendent will take accountability for that. This is not about how many summer jobs investments. We will do that, and we have more to do, much more to do. But there's something more at stake. Justice system, so that gangbangers with literally 27 to 50 arrests are on the streets, and we know that they are either going to be a victim or a perpetrator of a crime. And it is wrong. And we can do something different. So I would say to you, beyond the particular case of what's in the news and the decision that will come, we cannot have an either-or choice or a false choice that everybody has to pick sides. We have to work together, bring in that level of transparency. How you guys doing? Good. That level of transparency, but also a new level of accountability throughout the system.
Well, I got in front of this and call for these guys to get removed.
Did the IG's report recommend getting rid of Escalante?
Same thing yesterday. There was nothing new. We are not allowed to ask a question. You said the exact same thing yesterday. Nothing new.
Our Chicago local media finding out what D.C. newsies have known for a while. They probably knew it for a while, too, because that's where he's from. Current Windy City Mayor and former White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel can get feisty. Our senior political editor, Mark Preston, live with some proof of that. I think people in Chicago, the reporters there, were well aware how feisty Rahm Emanuel is.
Yeah, no question, Don. And you spent some time in Chicago as well. And, God, the reporters out there are very good. They're not afraid to ask a tough question. And when they asked a question to Rahm Emanuel about where he was going to send his kids, would he send them to public school or private school, he did get a little testy. In fact, let's take a look at his exchange with one of the local reporters out there.
Oh, Marianne, let me break the news to you. My children are not in a public position. The mayor is. And I look forward to our future interview.
Just take 1 second, please.
I'm done, especially after that.
And there you have Rahm Emanuel, who's answering a question there, Don, about his children and what schools they're going to go to. Then he decided he had enough of the internet and walked away. So really what it's come down to is that every politician faces this, including President Obama. Rahm Emanuel has decided to send his children to a private school, even though he's the mayor of Chicago. His kids are going to go to the University of Chicago lab schools. Rahm Emanuel says that his children are not a policy tool, and he's just acting as a father. So,
well, you know, Laura, today I come with a very heavy heart and a special message for every Chicagoan. Rahm Emanuel, as we know, has been in office since 2011. And since 2011, he's failed. He's failed to keep us safe. He's failed to keep our families safe, our friends, and even out-of-town visitors. My family has personally been impacted by the violence in Chicago. During Memorial Day last year, my little brother was in the car with two of his friends when two men walked up and shot the car 25 times. My little brother thankfully lived, but his best friend, bloodied in his arms, died. Now, considering Rahm Emanuel has been mayor since 2011 and murders have gone up, what we've seen is a mass genocide in the streets of Chicago. The only silver lining I see to a solution in terms of ridding this outside of President Trump coming in is the fact that we got an election that's coming up in the city of Chicago in several short months. And with that being the case, every Chicagoan needs to get out and vote Rahm Emanuel out of office. It's certainly true he didn't pull the trigger. I get that. But his policies and his inaction, rather, has enabled those that have pulled the trigger. You know that because the murders have gone up since he's been mayor.
I want to go to Representative Ford at this point and read for you something that was written a few years ago. Actually, this is a piece that was just written today, excuse me, in the American Thinker. The title of it is, "It's Time to Hold Democrats Responsible for Chicago's Violence." The city's famed violence is all the result of gangs and Democrats being in bed with each other, one hand washing the other. Democratic politicians sidle up to gang leaders for votes and use their thugs as substitutes for their political organizations. They muscle voters to the polls for the Democrats, and anyone who rebels gets a beating. The left benefits, so it gives the gangs what they want. That's Monica Showalter quoting Glenn Reynolds' piece from 2012. Your thoughts on that, given the bloodshed that we've seen, Representative Ford, over the last really several years, even with the modest declines of the last year or so?
Well, I have to say that Chicago is worse than the days of Al Capone. It's the bloodiest city in America, and I have to say that Democrats have to step up. I'm a Democrat, and I'm saying that Democrats must step up. All of the Democrats, all of my colleagues must step up and put politics aside. We must work with President Trump, and we must demand that we get help in the city of Chicago, on the west side of Chicago, and in our south side community, so that we can bring safety to all of the communities in the city. There are 77 communities in the Chicago community, and every community is feeling the trauma from the violence and destruction that's happening in the bloody city of Chicago.